Hey, welcome to ShrinkChicks.
Welcome to ShrinkChicks.
This is maybe one of our most requested topics.
So exciting.
Which I think is interesting. It feels important. So on next week's episode, I don't know if this is right, either next week's or maybe you heard it last week, who the hell knows at this point, because I don't know the actual publishing schedule. We had Terry Real. And one of the things Terry Real talks about is that 75% of divorce is initiated by women. And I am interested to know if this topic adds into that.
Interesting.
So today's topic is going to be the fact that you are happily child-free by choice. One of my favorite things that somebody asked is this a temporary decision? We're going to get into that.
We have so many questions.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. One of the most requested topics and the most I've ever seen us get questions.
I think it's a big topic because
people also don't know.
Right. People don't know. And I think that, when you really don't, and it feels like there's a timeline on it. Right. And when there's a timeline,
well, there is a legit timeline on it.
I know.
Right? Like there's like a medical thing. Yeah.
Right. There's a timeline. And so when there's a timeline and people feel like, I have to make this decision and you don't know, it's like, I really need guidance. I need someone to tell me.
Yeah. So we're today we're talking about child-free by choice, not child-free by circumstances, right? There are some people that end up child-free and it's not by choice. It's by circumstances, by loss, by infertility. Today, though, we are simply talking about a very deliberate, intentional choice, which you are making.
Which I'm making. And
people still seem perplexed by that. As a mother, I'm not. I'm just going to say that one right now. I get it.
I think that anytime you're doing something that is counterculture, right?
Going against the heteronormativity.
Right. People question it. And I think that it throws people off. I think that a lot of people go into, their adult life just thinking this is my next step, right? Because they've been told this is my next step.
Well, and you're not just told it like even in childhood, but like literally after your wedding, right? So like there's a very funny TikTok that's like, you're dating, when do you get engaged? You're engaged, when are you going to get married? You're married, when are you going to have babies?
Also,
you have a baby, when are you having a second one?
When do people say, when are you having a second one? When are you going to die? What's the next step, right? It's fucked up. But
it's probably like, when are you happy?
Like, right, oof. But I hear a lot at weddings, and I hear this all the time, that when people are making like speeches and they're talking about the couple,
yes,
people will always say, and I can't wait for you to pop out some kids. Like there will always be.
I mean, the last wedding we went to, somebody said that.
Exactly. And I always hear it and always think to myself, not just, okay, what if they don't want to have kids, or what if they can't? What if they struggle to have kids? There are these small little pressures that will be put into conversations. I notice them because we talk about it so much. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about, as we were thinking about, this topic, about messages that you would get in childhood too, right? So you're given like a baby doll from a very young age.
You know what's funny though? Like my daughter's obsessed with babies. Because she's been around other babies, right? Mm-hmm. Like I have like friends that like have second or third children, and she just like, there's something like kids are very interested in babies. I think it's like there's something smaller than them.
So I don't think I was.
I have no doubt that that's true.
Yeah. So I think that it's something there was not a point in my life.
Never had a maternal bone in my body.
And the thing is, I am so maternal towards animals and adults.
It's so true.
But I am not maternal towards children, and I never have
been. I have to tell you, you're so good with my daughter. Like, and I'm not saying that you like don't like. I'm first of all, like everything you're saying is like your lived experience, right?
Totally.
But also, like I've been on the FaceTiming you when you're like singing like songs to my daughter. So like, is that totally true?
Well, I don't know. Well, here's the thing. I know how to act. Actually, I don't know if I know how to act around kids, because sometimes I talk to them like they're adults.
But, yeah, that's what makes you a cool adult, though.
Right. And but I know how to bond with children, and bonding with my friends' children, bonding with Millie is so important to me because, number one,
her to take care of you
I need her to take care of me when I'm older. And number two, like, the fact that she's half of you is so cool. And just the fact that my friends are having kids and they're half of my friends. Like, how cool is that? There's like a little one of them. And I don't have to take care of them 24/7.
Well, that's a huge selling point.
You know. So I would say, but I've never had this like maternal instinct since I was younger. You know how you'll have like older kids that gravitate towards younger kids.
Oh, I mean, like I was always a babysitter, right? Like I like liked babies. Like yeah, like I have always had an interest, and that's what I mean. Like I always knew I wanted to be a mother.
Yeah, like so when my younger cousins were over, I was always just like, oh, I just can't wait till they grow up. And like I was probably 7, like I was so young, and I was like,
I can't wait till they grow up.
I can't wait till they grow up. At the same time
as me.
And I think some of it speaks to the fact that like I always felt for some reason, like probably being parentified in some way, that I was like older than I was, and just never felt that like maternal connection to kids. And I think that my experience is very specific, and I think that it might be a little bit more difficult for people who are on the fence, right?
I think it's way more difficult.
It's been pretty clear to me my entire life, and I don't think I've come out and said specifically like I'm not having kids until I got into the relationship with my husband, because I think I didn't really need to make that decision yet. Like it didn't feel like there was this, okay, I have to decide what's right for me. And so, but it really fits with my entire life. And I think my family wasn't surprised, even though they still struggle, I think a little bit with that. But no one was really surprised when I said I'm not having kids.
So I feel like the thing is, for people that are stuck in the middle, there's a fear of, if I don't do it, and then I get into what they call quote unquote advanced maternal age, and I feel like I lose my chance, will I regret it? Nobody ever talks about, if I do it, will I regret it?
So that's, I was actually,
because that's not cool to do.
Prepping for this episode, I was talking to my husband about this, and that's exactly what I said. I said, I would so much rather regret not having kids than having kids.
And I feel like it's just nobody wants to say it because there's like a child, you know what I mean? But like, I think when I talk about this idea that 75% of divorce is initiated by women, I think a lot of it goes into the fact that once you have kids, many people report a lower quality of marriage.
And I unfortunately know that.
When you know too much, it's not helpful.
It's part of it. And I think, but I think it speaks to like, when you even if you have kids and you regret it, doesn't mean you're not going to love the kid.
Oh my God,
or you're not going to take care of them, but
you might struggle with your identity a little more.
Exactly.
You might figure it might be hard.
There's struggles that come with that.
Yeah.
For me personally, my independence is very important to me.
And you have a fear of being stuck.
I have a fear of being stuck in something.
And the reality is when you have kids,
I don't know if stuck would be the right word.
Well, nobody wants us to say stuck.
No one wants us to say stuck, but it's a decision that you're making that's permanent.
Yes.
Right? And
it's another person.
Yeah.
Right? That like you have to like think about another person, that attachment, that abandonment, like all the stuff, right?
And for me, independence is very important. And also, I really get my maternal instincts fulfilled by my animals. Like, I really do.
And you're very good at that.
I just love them so much.
So we have so many questions. So I think we need to go to listener questions.
I'm ready.
I don't have them.
This was your job. You're supposed to be asking me.
Fuck.
This was your job.
I had one job. Somebody hand them to me. It's because it's because I gave my phone to Nikki to buy something from Target.
Oh, that was it?
That is true. We needed to order a ficus tree. Okay.
A fake one, because no one can keep plants alive in this office.
Here's a really good one that I think you started to touch on that I feel is important. How to deal with your parents' disappointment.
Okay. So for me personally, I would say my dad is much more disappointed than my mom. And I'll tell you why.
Okay, yes.
I'll tell you why I think that is. I think that is because my mom understands why I would feel this way.
75% of divorces.
And I have had this conversation with them. I love to bring up therapeutic topics with them. It's like, get off to it, just taking them deeper, because, no one talked about anything growing up. And so I'm like, listen, I'm going to tear that wall down and talk about all the things he never talked about. And so I kind of said, listen, I think that no matter what, when you have a kid, it falls on the woman a lot of the time in a heterosexual relationship.
I think that even the most balanced relationships who try very, very hard to be egalitarian, there is still a default. Part of that has to do with breastfeeding. Part of that has to do with societal norms. Part of that has to do with like literally you're in the hospital and you gave birth to something and your recovery is different, right? So like even in the most balanced relationships, there is going to be a
natural imbalance, right?
Great
and
point.
that's not, it's not
anyone causing it,
anyone's issue or
is.
any problem. It just is. And so I said that to my parents, and my dad agreed with me. He was like, yeah, you're right. You, as a woman, you have a different experience. And so I'm like, Dad, it makes sense that that's something that you would want. I mean, but I would have to birth the child and it would be, so I like to have conversations with them, but I think he really struggles with it. And I think that my parents struggle in a way where they're entering this phase of life where their friends have grandchildren. And I think that they're feeling the effects of possibly missing out on that with me.
Okay.
And so how do I deal with it? I remind myself that that's their journey and they're going to struggle with that, and that I have to make a decision that's right for myself.
Okay, I have a really good follow-up question.
I'm ready.
How do your in-laws feel? My family has known for years I want this path, but my in-laws don't.
All right. I'm going to speak once again to my experience. My husband has 3 other brothers, and 2 of them have children already. And I was very forthcoming about the fact that I didn't want children, and so was my husband.
Like with your mother-in-law, like you had.
Yeah, it was just very open. It's just always been an open discussion. I think it's a little bit more difficult if, your spouse is an only child and there's an expectation on them and you have to have this conversation with your in-laws. And I think that it's a tough, I think that to expect to get out of these conversations not disappointing anyone is going to be really tough. And I think that knowing that you disappointing someone else is not personal to you, you still have to make a decision that's right for you and your spouse, or and your partner, I should say, and that other people are going to have their feelings about it. It's not your responsibility to take care of their feelings about it, but to manage your emotions connected to their disappointment, and that it's not personal to you.
Okay. So then I think you started to get into this, but a lot of people have specific questions about this, right? So like one version of like how to deal with your parents' disappointments, and like, hold on, there was a really good question. Somebody phrased it. I loved like the way that somebody had phrased it, and now I can't find it. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
So like really like your parents' disappointment, right? Like what to do if you really feel like you're letting your parents down.
I think that your parents almost have to go through maybe a little bit of a grieving process with their idea of what their future looked like, right? Your parents, if they had an expectation of you having children, then they pictured this future where they would, be with you when you had the kid and be able to take care of them and be there, that there would be kind of this legacy that was being passed on. And when you're presenting them with something that maybe doesn't fit with what their expectations were, they have to go through a process of grieving, right? Whether it's grieving or kind of working through that for themselves. And since you have spent so much time in your own head coming to this decision, you've really worked through that for yourself, where you have said, okay, I have to see my life in this way, and maybe it doesn't involve kids, and this is what this is going to look like. And you've kind of gone through that process already. When you present that to someone else, they have to go through that process themselves, and it's something that they don't have control over. And so knowing that it might come with difficult feelings for them, you can give them the space to feel it. But once again, know that it's not something you have to take on of, oh, I have to make my parents happy.
Yeah. And
I think that's really hard for a lot of kids, is that they're like, oh, it's my job in some way to make my parents happy.
Okay, so
Ready.
I really, really like that answer for the record. We got a lot of these questions. Okay. Are you worried you'll change your mind later?
Am I worried I would change my mind later? You know, I was thinking about this too, in that I really feel like the decision is one that I kind of make every day, where I think about it. And, you know, some of the things I was thinking about is maybe when my friends start having kids, it will change my mind.
Now all your friends have kids.
Now all my friends have kids. They're all having children. And
they all did it once, right? So, like, talk about the experience of, like, being left out of something. Your 3 best friends literally all had boys at the exact same time. And I was like, wow, like, I wonder how I'm going to feel about this. And honestly, I feel fine. So far, so good.
You're
not worried about changing your mind.
I'm not worried. So I'm not worried about changing my mind, but I'm kind of, you know, we've talked a lot about, there's this idea that you have to do something that gets you to the point where you don't regret anything. But I'm also comfortable with the fact that it's okay if I have regrets, or if I change my mind and it's too late, that I've made this decision for myself for a reason. I can't imagine going from the place where I am to a place where I'm like, I want children so bad now, and I can't believe I made this. Like, it would
I can never imagine that coming. Like, I can imagine you saying, like, oh, like, I'm kind of bummed I think in this one way, yes. Right? Like, I'm sad to miss out on, like, this one specific thing.
Yes.
I can never imagine you being like, oh, I made the wrong decision.
I agree with that. Yeah. And I think that I expect to have those moments where I'm like, oh, I'm going to miss out on these things, or this is something I'm not going to have.
Okay. I don't know if you experienced this one.
Okay.
So you might have to answer from a professional standpoint.
Oof, okay.
How did you stop the shaming from family and friends?
I have experienced
this one. All right, tell me.
Not from friends, more from...
Yeah, right? Did it like any of your friends?
No. More from, I would say, just like older adults at different events. Like, I've had...
Can you tell us the worst one?
It hasn't been... Oh, well, actually, I had a conversation with someone, and they were like, well, isn't the point of just living just to have children? And I was like,
maybe the point of you living.
That was my exact response. Is like, not for everyone, you know, like, everyone has different reasons for living. I've had, you know, people will just make flippant comments like, oh, you know, wait till you have kids, or, oh, when all of you have kids together. And, you know, I think I've said this before, I love to make people uncomfortable in those situations and say, oh, I'm not having children. And they'll kind of blank stare at me. And
like, they just don't know what to say. Like,
they don't know what to say. But I have to say, there's a difference between someone shaming you and feeling shame. And I think that because I feel very comfortable with my decision, I don't feel shame in those instances.
Yeah.
And I think it might be, if I'm talking from a more professional standpoint, I think it's harder for someone who isn't as comfortable with their decision, or maybe they're battling against their internalized expectations about what they should do, what they're expected to do. And if they feel shame around that decision, then it's going to come up more when people make these comments. For me, I feel very comfortable with the decision.
Okay. I really like this question that's coming up next.
Okay.
But I want you to think about it for a minute. Okay. Did you read any of these? No.
Yeah.
A few? Like, do you know what I'm asking?
I skimmed them.
Okay.
No, I have no clue.
Okay. Are you trying to avoid something? Repeating a certain upbringing?
Am I trying to avoid something?
Do your parents listen to this podcast?
Some of them.
Okay.
But they know how I feel.
Yeah.
I make it very clear.
So are you trying to avoid something, Jill?
I don't think my decision is based on trying to avoid something, but I think if I had a child, I would definitely be passing on any sort of issues I have. I mean, if we talk about not wanting to feel stuck, right? That like, that's something I struggle with, is feeling stuck in something, or feeling like I don't have my independence.
Yeah.
And so that would, I believe, I would have to do a lot of intensive, if I were to have a kid, I would have to do a lot of intensive work around that.
Yeah.
Because, and I would do the work. And also there's a squirrel in our ceiling and it's making noise and it might bust through the wall. So.
It's bringing in its acorns.
Oh, good. He's bringing all his acorns. Good for him.
We're giving him a spot. But yeah, I think I would do that intensive work around it. But, you know, I don't think that's the reason for the decision, but 100% it would be part of it. I think that's natural in any relationship.
And you know what's funny is, like, I've heard people say before, like, yeah, like, I might be interested in having kids, but, like, the reality is, like, I raised all my siblings, so, like, I'm done.
You're burnt out.
I think that's the thing is that, like, maybe you are avoiding something, and, like, is that necessarily an issue? Right? Like, it's okay to be done with something or feel like I'm looking for something else. And it's also okay to be like, you know what, like, I might like this, but also I'm going to make this other decision.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you have to love 100% of anything.
Absolutely. And I think it's just how you choose to live your life, you know?
Before meeting your husband, how early would you share this in a relationship that you were not going to have kids?
Me personally, I didn't.
Okay.
And because I was 26 when I met my husband, and it didn't really feel necessary before that.
Yeah, it's too early.
You know?
It never came up before in other relationships?
No.
You had other long-term relationships.
I did, but I was very young. I always felt very young, and like this wasn't a conversation. I think my relationship with my husband was the only one that I was like, we're headed towards marriage.
Okay. Is it annoying hearing about your friends' kids all the time?
No.
I'm sitting right here.
No. Yeah, it's fucking horrible.
Like, that Millie bitch is crazy.
I get that. I have to say, no. But the fact of the matter is, my friends really just started having kids. So ask me in like 4 years.
I probably have the oldest child.
You do?
Yeah.
And she's great.
She's literally amazing.
The best.
I know. She's very easy to love.
She is.
Okay. I want to ask you.
I love it. It's like rapid fire.
Do you like this?
Yeah, I do.
Here's a really interesting question that I think is the one question that's going to stump you. Because I think this is the one question that you have a little bit of fear around.
I'm ready.
How do you plan to handle things when you're elderly? Because
Millie.
What? Millie.
Millie's going to take care of me.
No, well, when Millie, grows up and moves to Taiwan to live out her dreams. Right? She won't be able to take care of either of us.
No expectations on her at all.
So, like, I think that's the one thing that is, like, isn't that so interesting? That's, like, a real fear, right? Like, what will happen to me? Although, dude, you guys gotta admit, like, by the time we're older, how fucking sweet a retirement home's gonna be.
So, also,
I'm gonna smoke pot and do shrooms literally all day long and just have, like, I'm just gonna have, like, a virtual reality headset on and I'm gonna live. And I mean, my grandmother was, like, in a retirement home and she was just, like, fucking chilling.
Also,
it's the reason why STD rates are so high there.
Absolutely. Well, they're all having sex with each other. I don't blame them, right? Like, live out the rest of your days. I actually feel pretty good about that. I'll tell you why. My plan is to save the money that I would have spent on a child.
For a really nice retirement.
For a really nice retirement home.
So I think that's a really good thing to think about. Like, if that's something that's coming up for you about one of the reasons that keeps you in, is that really the reason to have a child? Or do you just have to think about budgeting differently in your life? And
you don't know what kind of relationship you could have with your child.
It's so true.
Like, you might get older and your child might fucking hate your guts.
Or just move to Taiwan to live out their dreams. Like, with no negative anything. Right?
And it's almost, I hate to say it, but it's almost like in having a child, there's like an expectation that they need to take care of you at the end of your life. But I also think in this generation, a lot of people are choosing to not have children. I think there's going to be more services as we get older. I think there's going to be more services for people.
Like Jetsons.
Like the Jetsons.
Like you can just have a robot.
I could just float to the moon.
Did you see Amazon's new robot that people are saying looks like Wall-E?
No.
It doesn't even do anything that cool. It doesn't like clean your house.
Okay, also, what happened in the Jetsons?
Oh, never watched it. Did you?
No, that's why I was like.
I just know they had a bunch of robots and they had a maid robot, right? But
were they in the?
They had a maid robot. Like that's okay. Like if I was gonna have a full robot, talk about money. And it cleaned my whole effing house, not just a room, but not just the floors. It dusted, it scrubbed shit down, it folded laundry. I would pay a lot of money for that.
100%.
I'd be saving
like
pennies.
Smart House.
Yes.
Did you ever see Smart House?
Did I ever see Smart House? Did I ever see Smart house.
And then did the house turn on them?
It did. Dude, do you know something? Actually, this is so weird. Did you know that in my in-laws' house, they have a central vac system that you can put.
I've seen that.
Have you seen this before?
Sweep it into like the little hole.
Yeah. You just put everything on the floor and then you sweep it into a hole in the wall and they have a central vac system.
Where does it go?
Well, I don't know. I've never asked that question actually.
That is an important question to ask.
I'm sure it goes in something.
But like what? Back into the house and then they just keep sweeping.
So
it's
like
a cycle.
But I think that's a really good point. Like, where are you putting your money towards?
I think that, listen, kids are expensive.
Are they? I haven't discovered that yet, Jennifer.
I just think, there's some money they're going to be spending on children.
That's a great point.
I would like to, you could just put the money that you would typically spend on a child into a retirement fund. Once you retire, you pay for some nice services at the end of your life.
What services?
I don't know. Time will tell.
Okay.
I have lost my mind by that point, will you help me?
Babe,
I just want you to take
honey,
care
I
of
gotta tell you something. You lost your mind now.
Oh,
Okay.
shit.
How do you bring up with someone the subject I'm sorry, how to bring up the subject with someone that you're dating about not having children. So like I know this didn't really come up for you, but I'm wondering your advice in this situation. It seems like a lot of people are wondering, like, they've already made this decision. They don't know how to bring it up on dates, how early to bring it up, when's appropriate. Like, what would you say?
So first I'll tell you about what happened in my relationship. That I would say we were like 3 dates in, and
3 days, that's pretty early.
Very early.
Yeah.
And we clearly really hit it off in the first 2. 3 dates in, we were in Rittenhouse Park. And let me first say, before that date, my husband said, do you want to go on a run? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Do I want to go on a run?
But this is like when he was a CrossFit trainer. And like he was like doing some different stuff. And he didn't know about you yet.
Yeah, you didn't. I mean, when I said, are you fucking kidding me?
This is what we talk about when thin privilege is people assume you work out. The issue with thin privilege is people
wrong.
You to work out.
I was like, no, I don't. So instead we sat in a park.
Very nice.
And, we were just chatting and there were kids around and I saw a kid. I said to him, how do you feel about kids? And he said, oh, they're okay. And I was like, so you hate them? And he was like, yeah, he was dancing around it.
Yes.
Because I think it was
he was worried, right? He's like, is this going to be the deal breaker?
Exactly. And I was like, listen, I'm not really into kids. And he was like, oh God, thank God.
And he proposed in that exact moment.
And then he proposed and we got married in Rittenhouse Square that day. No, but I think you can bring it up in a way that's kind of light, where just like I did, where you said, how do you feel about kids, right? You're not like, well, I don't want kids. And you kind of bring up the conversation of children if it's getting serious, because it's a really important thing to know.
You think?
And I think another tough situation that didn't happen in my relationship, hasn't happened in my relationship, I should say, is that sometimes people go in wanting the same things and then one person might change their mind. And so you kind of have to decide what's your priority in that situation.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't want kids, it is really important to bring it up in the relationship if you see that it's getting serious. And I think it's okay to bring it up in the first few dates.
Yeah.
If you're serious and you know what you want, I think it's okay to be like, hey, listen, just to let you know, I'm not really interested in having kids. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah.
Or are you interested in having kids? I think it's important to know that because it's a huge deal breaker for some people.
And it's interesting, right? That like a lot of people had said, like, at what point do I do this? And at what date do I do this? Like, people are waiting. Like, I don't think that there's a magic number.
Right.
And I think that the bigger fear, I think for men, is probably the bigger fear is like, if she brings this up, this means that like she's like ready right now. But like a lot of times people are just bringing it up because they're just like figuring out some dating deal breakers.
And that's a huge, listen, having kids is a huge life change.
Yes.
It's important to know if your partner wants that, right?
Yeah.
As much as you connect, if you don't connect over that, that's going to be a huge disconnect.
Yeah. I like this one. I think you've answered a little bit, but I just need to say this one because I think it's very good.
Okay.
Advice on handling societal pressure on women or women who look down on you for not having kids. I don't know if I want a kid or not, but I really don't appreciate always hearing, just wait until you have kids. I mean, how patronizing is that?
And people say that all the time.
Okay. That's why I'm saying I want to know the worst thing.
People also say that when you're younger, right? If you think about when you would get in fights with like your mom.
But also like when I had a baby, they'd be like, wait until you have a toddler. Now that I have a toddler, it's like, wait till you have a teenager.
You're just waiting for the rest of your life.
I'm like, I get it. It's difficult at every stage. Thank you.
But remember, like,
why do we do that?
I don't know. Because we want people to feel our experience. Right? So like, okay, example. You get in a fight with your mom, right? Or she would be telling you something, go do this or go do this. And you'd like yell at her like, Mom, I'm not doing that. And she'd be like, you just wait until you have kids, right? That's like a common
for
like,
sure
reaction. But you grow up and you're like, listen, Mom, I'm never going to know your experience.
For you. Which is funny because like for me, I'm like, oh my God.
You get it.
I get it. Right? Like
I even get it seeing my friends who have kids and having clients who have kids, and like I completely understand that.
And you're also very good about though, because you always say, you're like, Emmalee, like I don't know how you're doing it. Like you're also a very respectful friend that like the reality is like you and I do have different lives. And you're like very good at being like, yeah, like you have less freedom, your schedule's a little bit tighter.
I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know how you have energy. I don't know how you're functioning.
Yeah. So, like, I think it is different.
But I think that to also look inward at if someone's saying to you, wait until you have kids, and that brings up a lot of anger in you, right? Or that feels very shaming. What is that bringing up for you, right? Like, what could that be bringing to the surface for you? Because I have to say, it feels like an opportunity for me to, like, it feels like a teachable moment.
Oh, a teachable moment.
You know, it feels like, oh, this person has an internalized idea about how women should be living their lives.
Yes.
And this is my opportunity to say, shit. Hey, listen, that's their stuff, right? And so this is my moment to help teach them that not everyone has to follow these rules.
Okay.
But I live for that.
How do you respond? This is someone asking for advice for themselves.
Okay.
How to respond to parents who ask if you're planning on having kids? I'm only 20 years old. My Lord, I am so sorry. 20 years old and already getting that. Man, it's just going to get worse.
I would say, listen.
Just wait until you're 25. Didn't we just say people shouldn't do that? I mean, I feel so bad.
Yeah, that is aggressive. I would be like, listen, I'm only 20 years old. It's not a decision I'm ready to make yet. Yeah. If you're not ready to make it.
I don't know. I don't know is a really great sentence.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'll get back to you.
I'll get back to you on that.
I'll let you know when I make a decision on that. I think it's a really great thing to say.
I think that's good too, because it's not like, oh, you know, you're not leaving it open-ended for them to keep asking you once a year, like on your birthday.
Yeah.
You know, where you're saying, I will get back to you. It's going to be my decision to get back to you and tell you what my decision is.
Yes. What should someone say to a partner if they're not sure about child-free or having kids? This is the harder one. And this stuff, I think this is where people get stuck, right? Because like for me who knew I wanted to be a mom and you who knew you didn't want to be a mom, the harder thing is like when we talk about this as a deal breaker, what about the people who don't know? What do they do during dating?
I think it's something you say, right? Like you can be authentic and honest about like, listen, I don't know how I feel about this yet.
Yeah.
Right? And it's something I'm exploring. If you get into a relationship where your partner is gung-ho about having kids and you're still figuring it out, I think it's important to be authentic about this is something I'm still figuring out and to do exploration around it, right? If you're trying to figure out in the relationship if you can move forward because your partner really does want kids and you're not sure about it yet, to make efforts to say, is this something I want? How do I explore if it's something I want? You know, I think when we're unsure of something, it's so much easier to avoid it and say like, oh, I'm just going to kick this down the road, you know? And so to address it, to say, okay, well, like if this is a relationship that's important to me, how do I address this for myself? How do I look at this for myself? to be able to figure out if this, and that might take time. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think I just like the idea. I just like the idea of I don't know being a completely appropriate response no matter what the question is. Because there's a lot of shit in life we just simply do not know. But I think we feel like we're supposed to figure it out. I get asked it all the time. What about, are you going to have more kids? I don't know. I truly do not know.
Also, I think something to bring up too is that I feel like, and we talk about this with dating, that I feel like there's this expectation that if you do want to have kids, or you should have kids in some way, that like you shouldn't have any doubts. Right? Or
I have doubts about literally everything I do in life.
And if you choose to not have kids, you shouldn't have doubts the other way. And I have doubts.
Yeah.
Because that's part of being human. That's part of being an analytical human who can think about things very intensely. But to know that no decision that might be right for you has to come without those doubts.
Yes.
When we put that pressure on ourselves to make a decision with no doubts, then we're even more confused.
So, Jen, as we hit the end of this episode, what is something you want people to know about wonderful child-free people?
I see you. I really commend you for making a decision that might be against what other people's idea of your life should be, because that's not easy. It's not easy to make a decision that's right for you, that other people question for you, that might disappoint other people. I think the fact that you're making a decision that's right for you is important. For the people who are still deciding or still figuring that out, give yourself space to do so. And to once again know that there's, you're allowed to have doubts, and even though they're scary, and I think doubts can be really scary for people, and to know that no decision, decisions might come with regrets too, and that the regret doesn't necessarily mean you made the wrong decision, but that, that's also just a part of life, and that it might bring up some challenges to make this decision, but you're working through it, and keep taking care of yourself. Keep doing you.
Thanks for telling us a little bit about you.
You're welcome. It's just gotten used to it at this point.
If this message was good for you and you thought someone else in your life might enjoy it, please feel free to send it on over to them. We always appreciate a 5-star review. It's you rate, review, subscribe, and follow an Apple Podcast. We love you, and don't forget to grow yourself. You gotta know yourself. We'll see you next week.